It's Halloween night somewhere in Ohio, and you already know what's about to go down. In this town, zombies, vampires, and werewolves are all real, and there's a little guy in orange pajamas who's secretly the most dangerous one of all. These stories will leave you shocked with some of the craziest twists that you've ever seen, so we're here to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat every single Halloween monster in Trick or Treat. This Halloween is about to turn into a nightmare. Walking home, a frustrated robot named Emma complains to her husband that she's not feeling the holiday spirit and decides to blow out their jack-o'-lantern a few hours early, but that was her biggest mistake. What she doesn't realize is that they're already being watched by a costumed kid from across the street who sneaks around to the side of the house without catching their attention. Just when they're about to head inside, Emma here decides that she hates Halloween so much that she's going to take all of the decorations down right now, sending her husband upstairs while she gets started. Grabbing a box, she walks all around the yard, taking down the decorations one at a time until she notices a creepy kid watching her from across the road. Looking closer, she realizes that he has a blood stain on his mask, and he isn't carrying a sack full of candy like all of the others. Just as she's starting to get nervous, a car pulls up, revealing that the kid was just waiting for his friends, but this doesn't mean that she's safe just yet. The woman goes back to what she was doing when all of a sudden something lunges out from the box, shrieking as it pulls her to the ground under one of the sheets. Fighting for her life, she stumbles backwards as they crash through the gate directly into the path of some trick-or-treaters, but by then it's already too late, and the attacker slashes her throat with a broken lollipop, dragging her back to the yard as the kids run away screaming. Hours later, Emma's husband finally wakes up having no idea what happened. Looking for her in the yard, he pulls back a sheet only to find the woman's head stuck on one of the scarecrows with the lollipop sticking out of her mouth, making one victim down with 9 more to go. Okay, it looks like Emma here just found out why you never disrespect the spirit of Halloween. I mean, even her dumbass husband tried to warn her that blowing out the jack-o'-lantern would be a fatal mistake. But to understand why, we have to go back to where the tradition originally came from. You might not know this, but Halloween actually started out in Europe over 2,000 years ago as a Celtic festival called Samhain. Every year, they'd throw a banger to celebrate the end of the harvest, but they also believed that the spirits of the dead could cross back over into our world, causing all kinds of mischief and chaos until the end of the night. Eventually, these traditions made their way over to America, where we now call it Halloween, but instead of wearing animal skins and lighting bonfires to ward off evil spirits, we just dress up in costumes and make regrettable decisions at parties. Not me though, because I'm solid A100. Check my resume. We don't be making mistakes at parties. But anyways, way back in the day, people would carve scary faces into turnips and potatoes, putting them in front of windows and doorways to scare away any evil spirits or dangerous critters who might come by. In America, we switched over to pumpkins because they were a lot easier to carve, and that's how the modern-day jack-o'-lantern was born. Nowadays, we mostly carve pumpkins for fun, but it looks like Emma here should have taken her husband's warning just a little tiny eensy-weensy little bit more seriously, you know what I'm saying? Now, with all that being said, the easiest solution here is to just leave the pumpkins alone until Halloween is over. Blowing it out invited in the evil spirits, and that's what's got the attention of whoever or whatever was creeping on her from across the street. But we can still have a fighting chance here as long as we use our training. First, we have to remember that this is Ohio on Halloween night, so we need to be prepared for anything. This means no going outside alone after dark because you have no idea what kind of ghouls or goblins might be roaming the streets. And we need someone to use as a meat shield if goes down. Emma should have made her husband stay outside and help, or just waited until the morning to get everything cleaned up. You always need to stay aware of your surroundings because you can't afford to let your guard down even for a second. When she got distracted by the guy across the street, she gave the real threat a perfect chance to sneak right into her yard where they could close in for the kill. Of course, you always gotta keep that thing on you in case of emergencies, especially on a spooky night like tonight, and it's essentially to always have some kind of self-defense tool within arm's reach, okay? Am I reaching? I don't think so. Even if it's just something like a simple broom or a gardening tool, you'll be glad to have it if some little creep jumps out of a box and tries to kill you with a lollipop. Once the fight starts, that's when you just use those jujitsu skills that you've been practicing to hold him off and get yourself into a better position. You can even use the sheet to your advantage and try to wrap him up inside that so he can't fight back. Earlier that night, everyone in town is gathered around for a big-ass costume parade on Main Street, but the real monsters are hiding in plain sight. At a costume store, 4 girls are trying on their outfits, getting ready for a party later that night, where it sounds like they're looking to meet some guys. It seems like they're no strangers to some Halloween hanky-panky, except for Lori here, whose Little Red Riding Hood costume leaves a little bit more to the imagination than her friends. At the register, her sister Danielle picks up one of the Keebler elves, inviting him to be her date to the party when he gets off work. As for the girls, we'll get back to their story later, but right now there's another little twerp somewhere in town who needs our attention. Back in the neighborhood, this pudgy punk Charlie here is walking down the street destroying every jack-o'-lantern he sees. That's when he spots the holy grail of all Halloween finds, a freshly filled please take one bucket with nobody standing around. But he has no idea that he's walking straight into a trap. As he's grabbing handfuls out of the bucket, someone comes up and catches him in the act. It's the school principal, Mr. Wilkins, and he tells the punk to take a seat on the porch, because he's about to teach him a very important lesson. Meanwhile, Danielle here is still trying to find her sister a date, saying that she needs to be more confident. Showing her how it's done, their friends Maria and Janet pick up these 2 camera guys, leaving only Red Riding Hood to find herself a man. Sitting down, the principal tells Charlie to have some candy, pulling a knife out of his bag as he finishes carving a pumpkin. While he's eating, the man uses the opportunity to give him a stern lecture about all of his bad decisions. He explains how Halloween traditions were originally meant to keep us safe from the spirits that cross over into our world. But after all these years, it seems like nobody gives him any respect. After a few bites of the candy bar, Charlie starts to cough, and it looks like he might need some help, but Wilkins here is not concerned. That's when the principal reminds him about one of the most important Halloween traditions. Always check your candy. And suddenly, he starts vomiting up tons of chocolate and blood onto the steps before collapsing over into the man's lap. That makes 2 victims down, with 8 more to go. Okay, I don't remember this ending to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but I guess this twerp just got what was coming to him. The truth is that his mistakes started before he even set foot in Wilkins' yard. We've already talked about why smashing pumpkins is bad, but there's something else that you probably noticed. He isn't wearing a costume, and there are a few reasons why this was a bad choice. Now, just like jack-o'-lanterns, Halloween costumes go back to the most ancient traditions of the holiday. Before people were dressing up like the Minions or Guy Fieri, they'd make costumes out of animal skins to confuse the spirits and supernatural creatures, allowing us humans to blend in and survive the night. Nowadays, we still dress up as a way to have fun and celebrate the holiday, but maybe if Charlie here had put a little more effort into his costume, he'd still be alive. I'm just saying. Besides protecting him from the monsters, a good costume would also hide his identity, allowing him to steal as much candy as he wants and then escape before things turn deadly. The biggest red flag of all, though, might have been that he found a take one bucket with anything left in it. I don't know about you, but growing up, those things didn't last 5 minutes before they got torn apart faster than a side character from The Walking Dead. When Wilkins showed up acting all calm and collected, that was Charlie's cue to run for it. It might seem like he's getting off easy, but whenever someone catches you doing something bad and then acts like it's no big deal, it's always because whatever they have planned is much worse. Now, Halloween night is the only night where you're actually encouraged to take candy from strangers, but that doesn't mean that you can just let your guard down. Just like the principal said, you should always check your candy because you never know what someone might have put in it. Wilkins here poisoned the candy with cyanide, which prevents your cells from using oxygen, basically suffocating you at a cellular level. Within minutes of ingesting some, all of your vital systems shut down. Even with medical treatment, there isn't much that you can do, meaning that Charlie here was done for as soon as he took his first bite. But there are ways to check before it happens if you want to know what to look for. You want to check the wrapper for any signs of tampering, like if it's been torn, punctured, or opened and rewrapped. Cyanide specifically has a faint smell of bitter almonds. whatever that smells like. So if you notice that smell and you're not eating an almond candy bar, then think twice. Charlie here was in the dark, and the principal used a needle to only make a tiny puncture in the wrapper, so to be fair, it would have been extremely hard to detect. It seems like the best way to survive here would have been to avoid the confrontation altogether. Wear a costume to hide your appearance, and then when Wilkins comes up and tells you to take a seat, just run for it. He'd probably still die later from eating the candy, but even if he didn't, smashing the pumpkins would have earned him a visit from someone much worse. Dragging the body inside, Wilkins barely makes it through the front door when another group of trick-or-treaters shows up on his porch. He answers the door still covered in blood, but the kids think that it's all just part of his costume, never suspecting what their principal has really been up to. While he's getting them some candy, Macy here asks if they can have his jack-o'-lantern for a scavenger hunt, and he tells her that it's fine as long as they promise not to smash it. As they turn to go, he spots one last trick-or-treater waiting for his turn, a cute little scarecrow named Sam, and reaches out with the bucket to give him a piece of candy, never realizing that this was actually the best decision of his life. Walking to the kitchen, the principal passes by the table where he's been injecting deadly poison into the candy and grabs a hacksaw out of the cabinet before dragging the body out to the backyard. Lifting up the tarp, he uncovers a deep grave with another body already at the bottom, but just when he's about to dump the new one inside, his son Billy starts shouting to him from up on the second floor. The kid's just excited to show off the candy that he brought back from trick-or-treating, but his dad tells him to be quiet, saying that he'll be inside soon. After that, it's back to burying the body, but this time the neighbor's dog comes out and starts barking at him through the fence. That's when the principal here comes up with an idea. Chopping off a finger, he throws it over the fence to keep the dog busy, but the owner, Mr. Krieg, comes out to see what's going on. Thinking that it's pranksters, the old man approaches the fence, ready to kick some ass, but quickly realizes that it's just Steve doing some late-night work on his septic tank. The whole time they're talking, the other body starts coming back to life, struggling to get loose as the principal stomps it into submission. Just when he finally gets rid of the neighbor, Billy comes back to the window, shouting that he wants some help carving his pumpkin, and his dad agrees to be right in as long as he promises to be quiet. Once he's gone, he's finally able to take care of the one in the bag for good, making 3 victims down with 7 more to go. But the principal's night is far from over. After finishing up with his yard work, the man heads inside, seemingly annoyed that his son kept bothering him. Before going in, he notices the neighbor shouting for help through the window, but ignores it as he's suddenly tackled by that kid Sam from before. In the kitchen, the kid scares the crap out of him by popping up from behind the table wearing a zombie mask. Taking his hand, he says that it's time to carve the pumpkin and leads him down into the basement holding a knife behind his back. When Billy runs over to the table, the man slowly approaches from behind, lifting the knife and bringing it down with a powerful swing. He pulls the blade back covered in blood, but it turns out that Billy here is just fine because their pumpkin that they're carving was actually Charlie's severed head after all. Somewhere else on the street, Macy and her friends are still out collecting as many jack-o'-lanterns as they can find. They meet up with their friend Schrader, but they still need a few more pumpkins for what they have planned. That's when they get to the house where this quiet and smart girl Rhonda lives, and Schrader invites her to come with them, but it seems like Macy has other plans in mind. At the parade, 2 partygoers are making out at the end of a dark alley. The woman seems like she's having a good time until she realizes that she's covered in her own blood, and it's coming from a bite on her neck. That's when the man smiles, revealing his bloody vampire fangs, and the woman runs away terrified, frantically screaming for help. Surprisingly, she actually makes it to safety, or at least that's what she thinks. But the pissed off robot who she asks for help thinks that she's just another drunk partygoer, and the vampire quickly closes in, killing her in front of everyone while they're all too distracted to even notice. That makes 4 victims down, with 6 more to go. Okay, damn, this town's got some problems. First, a killer principal, then a freaky-ass vampire, and we haven't even talked about the little guy who's going around offing people with a lollipop. I guess what they said about Ohio is true after all. Now, if you want to survive in a place like this, one pro tip I can give you is to avoid wandering down dark alleyways with any random strangers who you just met. Obviously, the party is a safer environment since you have plenty of meat shields nearby if something goes wrong, but there's a possible explanation for why she made this moronic decision. Vampire hypnosis. follow me here. Everyone knows that vampires can use their demonic riz to completely brainwash their victims, putting them into a trance-like state, where they aren't in control of their own actions. The only way to resist is by being a true Sigma and overpowering them mentally, but in this case, the victim was probably drinking all night, making her even more vulnerable. By the time he had her in the alley, this woman was basically done for already, because fighting off a vampire on your own might as well be impossible. You're up against superhuman strength, speed, and agility, immunity to most forms of physical damage, and rapid healing from wounds that would be deadly to humans. Plus, he most likely had centuries of combat experience defeating enemies much stronger than you are, meaning that you're just another victim on a long list. Unless you somehow remembered that you need to fight back. Vampires may be immortal, but you can still defeat them if you have the right strategy. First of all, we know that a wooden stake through the heart is a guaranteed way to kill a vampire. All she'd have to do is find some junk from the alley or even a decoration from the parade, and she would have a pretty formidable weapon that could land a deadly hit if she gets lucky. If you really want to finish the job, then removing the head and burning the body is the best way to do it. But first you have to even make it that far, and personally, I think a better option is to avoid the fight altogether. I mean, remember, vampires have to be invited inside of buildings, so if she ran into one of the nearby shops, then he wouldn't have even been able to follow her in, and she'd be safe while he went after another victim. The other choice would have been to just keep running when she first got away and hope that she lost him in the crowd, but now I guess we'll have to wait and see if the vampire's next victim does any better. Macy leads her friends down a path deep into the woods, sneaking through a gate until they find themselves at the edge of an abandoned quarry. Turning to the others, she explains that they're here to pay their respects to the spirits. But at first, it's time for another scary story. 30 years ago on Halloween Day, a bus full of kids were headed back from school, but none of them would ever make it home. You see, these kids were constantly getting into trouble, so one day all of their parents got together and decided to come up with a plan. Instead of taking them home, the bus driver turned off from his usual route and drove them all the way out to the quarry here on the edge of town. It turns out that the parents paid him to take care of their little problems, but everything didn't go exactly how they planned. While the driver was making sure that everyone was locked in place, one of the kids managed to get free and ran for the wheel, trying to drive himself home. Someone tripped the driver before he could stop them, and Dracula hit the gas, sending the whole bus plummeting over the edge. As it sank below the water, only their Halloween masks came to the surface, but the bus was never found, and the driver was never seen again. Sarah here thinks that it's probably just a story, but Macy warns her not to be so sure. That's why they've been collecting jack-o'-lanterns, to leave them as an offering for each of the 8 victims. Taking the pumpkins, Macy leads them over to an old elevator that will take them down into the quarry, but it's only big enough for 3, meaning that Rhonda and Chip have to wait for the next ride. While they're waiting, they hear a terrifying howl from somewhere deep into the woods, and Rhonda guesses that it must be a pack of werewolves. The elevator comes back up and the two of them nervously climb aboard. On their way down, they spot the other 3 waiting for them down in the mist, but before they can get to them, something happens. All of a sudden, their friends begin to scream as all of their lanterns go out one at a time. The pirate kid panics, trying to make the elevator go back up, but it's too late, and there's nothing that they can do besides ride it to the bottom. They try calling out to their friends, but when no one answers, Rhonda here decides that she has to go and look for them. Leaving Chip at the elevator, she heads off, following the others' trail. Deep in the mist, the girl eventually comes to the edge of a murky lake and sees the wrecked school bus sticking up from the water, proving that the story was true. That's when she notices her friend's mask floating in the water, but as she leans over to check, one of the zombified kids suddenly grabs her leg and drags her down as more start to close in. Terrified, the girl breaks free and runs back towards the elevator, only to find that the zombies are already eating Chip alive. Stumbling, she drops her glasses and ends up cornered against the rocks, where she slips and hits her head on a small drop, knocking herself unconscious. The zombies gather around, but instead of eating her, it seems like they're actually worried. Rhonda wakes up a few moments later to find one of them standing over her and punches it in the head as she tries to crawl away. But that's when she realizes that it's only her friends playing a prank. Now, unlike the others, Schrader here actually feels bad about what they did and apologizes to Rhonda for bullying her. But now it's time for the others to learn their lesson. Going back for their stuff, Macy here kicks the last jack-o'-lantern into the water, and that's when they start hearing voices from somewhere in the fog. Hearing them scream, Schrader goes to see what's wrong, leaving Rhonda behind at the elevator. He ends up crashing right into Macy, who tells him in a panicked voice that they need to leave. All of a sudden, they notice something coming towards them from out of the darkness. It's the real zombie trick-or-treaters from Macy's story, and they're coming to devour their flesh. Well, I guess the joke isn't so funny now, huh? I know. Why didn't you try telling the zombies it's just a prank, bro, and see how that works out for you? Rhonda's biggest mistake here was ever trusting these kids in the first place. Everyone knows that if the popular kids suddenly want to hang out with you, it's always a trap, especially if it's also on Halloween night. At first, it might seem like the zombies here came back to teach these punks a lesson, and you would be right, but not for the reasons that you think. Remember, Halloween isn't just about treats. It's also about tricks. It wasn't the prank on Rhonda that set them off. Maybe it was when Macy smashed the jack-o'-lantern, because she was clearly disrespecting the holiday traditions. These kids are definitely in a tough spot, but they still might have a chance to survive if they start making the right decisions. First, we have to understand what we're up against, okay? Zombies are terrifying, but they're also one of the easiest supernatural creatures to take down. If they're the sprinter type, then you're in trouble, but these look like shamblers, and that's a lot easier to handle. The biggest threat with shamblers comes from their overwhelming numbers, but in this case, we're only dealing with 8. This means the kids are still outnumbered, but they're going to have much better odds of surviving than if there were dozens of them. The kids are faster, they can work together, and if they can make it back to the elevator, then they'll be able to leave the zombies behind. So here's what they need to do. Right now is the perfect opportunity to use the sacrificial friend technique that we covered in our Pablo Escobar video. Anytime that you're doing something dangerous, you always want to have one person in the group who you know will be the sacrificial friend if anything goes wrong. We know that zombies have an insatiable craving for human flesh, but once they get some, they become so distracted by eating that they forget about anything else, providing the perfect chance for the others to escape. Pirate Boy here looks like the weakest link, so unfortunately, he's gotta go. I'd immediately push him into the zombie's path, giving the rest of us an opportunity to get away while they were distracted. To get out of the quarry, I'd use my natural surroundings as obstacles to make it harder for them to chase and climb up to the areas where they couldn't reach if I got surrounded. They should also be on the lookout for anything that they can use as a weapon, whether that's some old tools or even just a loose rock. If a zombie does attack, stay out of the bite zone and go for the head to finish them off. It's a dangerous situation, but by using their speed and agility to their advantage, the kids can lead the zombies around like they're playing Black Ops. And then, when they get the opportunity, make a break for the elevator to get back up to safety. Terrified, the group runs back to the elevator as fast as they can. Sarah starts to lag behind, and when the chains from her costume accidentally get stuck, the zombies end up dragging her right back to her death, making 5 down with 5 more to go. The others make it to the elevator, but this time, Rhonda has it locked, and there's only a matter of seconds left before the zombies get them next. Reaching down, she grabs the key and acts like she's going to let them in, only to change her mind and press the button at the last second, waving goodbye as she leaves them to their doom. As she gets off the elevator, the girl can hear their screams as they're being torn limb from limb, and she passes by our little buddy Sam, who gives her an approving look as they both go their separate ways. That makes 8 victims down with 2 more to go, but now it's time to check back in with Red Riding Hood and see if she's had any luck finding a date. While her friends leave for the party, Lori stays behind at the parade searching for a suitable bachelor to be her guest. So far, it's not looking good, and to make matters worse, she has no idea that the vampire is watching her every move. When her sister calls looking to see where she is, she notices him staring at her from across the street, but he quickly disappears back into the crowd. Thinking nothing of it, she reluctantly leaves to meet a backup guy who her sister found at the party. making the path into the forest without realizing that she's being followed. As soon as she's too far to call for help, she begins to hear noises coming from somewhere in the woods. Frustrated, she shouts that she doesn't want to play games, telling whoever it is to just come out. At first, it seems like no one's there, but when she turns around, she's horrified to see the vampire standing in the path just a few feet away. The monster attacks her before she can even react, pinning her up against a tree and digging his fangs into her neck. At the party, Danielle is just starting to get worried when she hears a scream, and a body wrapped in her sister's costume suddenly crashes down from the trees. The girl runs over to check, but instead of Lori, it's the vampire who's inside, and he's begging for their help. That's when Lori steps out from the woods and her sister asks what took her so long. They don't seem too worried about the whole vampire situation, and while the sisters are busy talking, their friend reaches down and pulls off his mask and fake teeth, revealing that it was really the principal all along. As Wilkins looks around, he suddenly realizes that he's completely surrounded by dead bodies. Panicking, he tries to get up and run, only to find out that his leg has been totally destroyed. It turns out that when these chicks said that they were looking for some fresh meat, they meant that shit literally. And now it's time for the real party to start. As Marilyn Manson's cover of Sweet Dreams plays in the background, all of the girls start taking off their costumes. But then they start peeling off layers of their own skin. All around the bonfire, they transform into a pack of terrifying werewolves, until it's only Lori still in human form standing over her victim's body. Growing fangs, she lunges down to take a bite out of the man's neck, and others all howl as she makes her first kill, making 9 victims down with just 1 more to go. Even little Sam is there to watch. But now, it's time to go back to someone who you might have already forgotten about. Okay, well damn, I guess this time it was Principal Wilkins who bit off a little bit more than he could chew. At least now the town is safe, sort of, but I've got one last thing to say to our fake vampire here. Mr. Wilkins, you f***ed up! This dude was going on an absolute rampage. He started off the night with someone we didn't even see, and then he got Charlie and even handed out poisoned candy to every trick-or-treater in town. Then, as soon as he puts the kid to bed, it's right back to the streets to go Dracula mode on some more unsuspecting victims. And I've got to ask, what exactly was the plan here? Were you just gonna kill everyone in town while leaving behind as much evidence as possible and hope that you wouldn't get caught? You probably thought that you could get away with anything since it was Halloween, but everything changed when you decided to go after Lori here. She might have seemed like an easy target, but think about it. Walking alone in the woods dressed as Little Red Riding Hood on Halloween night? Nobody is that stupid. Either she's got a blicky in the picnic basket, or it's something even worse, and I guess you just found out the hard way. Bet you never thought that Lori here would turn out to be a werewolf when you picked her as your next victim, but by the time that you realized you'd made a mistake, you were already as good as dead. Have fun giving Saturday detentions in hell, because Mr. Wilkins, you f***ed up. Now, I'd hate to give a guy like Wilkins any advice, but how could we survive if we ended up in the same scenario? Just like vampires, we're dealing with supernatural strength, speed, agility, rapid healing, and heightened senses for tracking prey. Once they were fully transformed, Wilkins here stood no chance, but the key was to act before they'd completely crossed over into wolf form. The best choice is to try sneaking away without a fight. We can see that at least one of the girls is wearing a giant teddy bear costume that completely obscures her identity, so it's possible that if we found a similar costume from one of the bodies, we might be able to quickly put it on while they're distracted, and then sneak away while they think that we're actually one of them. Otherwise, before they've started to transform, we need to jump up and grab a stick from the fire. Werewolves, just like most other supernatural creatures, can be injured by fire, so we're going to use a torch to defend ourselves while we make our escape. The transformation process takes just a minute, so we should get a decent head start while they're still in human form. On the way, I'd grab a body part from one of the other victims, because we can use the fresh meat as a distraction if the wolves start chasing us down. I'd also attempt to cut through water if I had the opportunity to, so that they'd lose my scent and then run straight back to town where I'd have plenty of meat shields to keep me safe. Of course, the principal would have had a pretty hard time doing any of this with a broken leg, but that's fine since he had it coming in the first place. One of the clowns knocks on the door, but when it finally opens, there's nothing but total darkness on the other side. All of a sudden, a terrifying monster with yellow eyes appears from the shadows and starts coming towards them, growling as it chases the kids off of the property. They rush through the gate without looking back, but the truth is that there was never any monster at all. It's just Old Man Krieg and his little mean dog. Stealing their candy, Krieg goes inside and gets back to some very important business, burning a bunch of old photographs in the fireplace. Just then, someone throws an egg at the window as they run to the side of the house, so Old Man Jenkins here grabs a baseball bat and gets ready to stand on business. As he goes to check it out, he hears a commotion coming from the neighbor's backyard, but it's just Principal Wilkins working on that septic tank. Back inside, he starts relocking the infinity locks on the back door, but now the dog is barking at the front again. Furious, he rushes out ready to club someone, only to see that his entire front yard has been taken over by an impossible amount of smiling jack-o'-lanterns. That's when he hears more noise from inside and sees the doggy door swinging open with the little pup going crazy over something upstairs. Going back to the fireplace, he grabs a double-barreled shotgun off the wall and puts some extra shells in his robe, ready to blast this home intruder without a moment's hesitation. Making his way up one step at a time, he inches closer and closer to the bedroom, sure that he can hear something waiting on the other side. Pushing it open, the place looks empty until he notices something on the bed. But when he pulls back the sheets, he realizes that it's just an animatronic hand from a Halloween decoration. Suddenly, a pumpkin in the corner of the room goes up in a jet of flames, and he sees that the walls are covered in strange messages written in blood. While he's distracted, someone reaches out from underneath the bed and brutally slashes the back of his leg. It's Sam, and as he silently comes out from behind the bed, he slowly unwraps a freshly bitten candy bar, revealing a bloody razor blade hidden inside. Krieg reaches for his boomstick and fires a shot, but misses and hits the jack-o'-lantern instead. For a moment, it seems like the kid might be gone, so he gets to his feet and stumbles back to the staircase, only to trip and fall straight onto a pile of candy, razors, and broken glass. With his hands all cut up, he can barely use his fingers to open the door, and while he's busy trying to get all the locks, Sam here crawls across the ceiling and drops down from above like a spider monkey, landing directly on the old man's shoulders. The two keep scrapping it out until Jenkins here body slams Scarecrow Boy into the wall and stuns him long enough to crawl over to the window. He tries calling the principal for help, but the man ignores him and walks inside, leaving him to fend for himself as Sam lunges in for round 2. This time, the old man tears off a section of his mask while on the ground, revealing that it's actually some kind of pumpkin-headed skeleton thing that's somehow cute and horrifically f***ed up at the same time.
Okay, you know what? After finally getting a look at Sam here, I'm starting to think that he might not be so bad after all. At least he only goes after people who deserve it, but that's bad news for Old Man Krieg because he just broke one of the most important traditions in Halloween. This guy's biggest mistake was not giving out candy to the trick-or-treaters, a tradition that goes back to ancient times when people would leave out food and sweets as a way to appease the harmful spirits. That's what got Sam's attention, and from that moment, he decided to make Krieg next on his list. Right when all those jack-o'-lanterns suddenly showed up in his yard, that was a sign to run for his life. But he fell right into the trap as Sam kept luring him to different parts of the house. As soon as he saw writing all over the walls in the bedroom, he should have expected an ambush to hit at any second, and maybe that would have saved his leg from getting sliced. Now, Sam here doesn't fit into the same categories as the zombies, werewolves, and fake vampire that we've seen before, but from his abilities and actions, we can reasonably guess that he's some kind of demonic entity that acts as the vengeful spirit of Halloween itself. Normally, that would make for a pretty unwinnable situation, but Krieg here has a boomstick and knows how to use it. And we've seen from Evil Dead that this is an adequate demon-killing device. He is in a pretty tough situation now that Sam is about to shank him in the kidney, so it's time to stop holding back and use those grappling skills that he learned in the war. First, we need to control the arm with the razor blade and try to disarm him by slamming his hand against the floor until he drops the weapon. Then, Krieg should try and stun him with another judo throw, flinging him as far across the room to create as much space as possible. He needs room to get to his shotgun, since that's his most devastating weapon, but If he lands a shot, we can't assume that the fight's over. Given Sam's supernatural nature, he's 100% guaranteed to have regenerative powers, which means that if you're going to kill him, then you really need to kill him. Use whatever weapons you have to completely destroy his head, and then burn the body until there's nothing left to finish the job. Now, with that being said, it's important to remember that following Halloween traditions is the easiest way to get Sam off your case. But we'll see how that plays out for Krieg in just a minute.
The creature bites a chunk out of Krieg's injured leg, but when it looks up, it finds itself staring down both barrels of the man's boomstick. The blast sends Sam's entire body flying across the room until he crashes into the wall, but the old man isn't done with him yet. Getting to his feet, he reloads and pops off 2 more blasts in his general direction, thinking that that should be enough to seal the deal. Grabbing his phone, he tries to call for help, but before he can talk to the police, something cuts the line. When he goes back, he sees that Sam is still right where he left him, but that's when the creature's severed hand shanks him in the foot. The old man howls in pain as he punts the thing across the room, but it quickly gets up and scuttles off into the shadows. What's even worse is that he's completely out of ammo, and on the other side of the room, Sam suddenly wakes up as his hand magically reattaches to his body. By now, the old man is too injured to run or fight back, and Sam slowly puts on his mask as he stands up and grabs a lollipop from his bag. Biting it off so that the edges are razor sharp, he takes his time as he makes his approach, and the old man reaches for the basket on the table as a last line of defense. As soon as Sam gets close, he shatters a bottle and holds it up like a knife, but the creature catches his arm and twists it out of the way as he holds the lollipop above his head. The killer brings it down straight into his chest. As luck would have it, a candy bar happened to land right in the perfect place. And since he finally obeyed the Halloween tradition, this means that Sam's beef with the old man is over. Without saying a word, he silently turns and walks out the front door, leaving the old man injured but alive. The story is not over just yet. Drifting over to the fireplace, we finally get a good look at those pictures. And it turns out that Krieg here was more than just your average grumpy boomer. He was the bus driver who drove into the quarry all those years back. But remember, Sam isn't the only supernatural creature living here in town. Sometime later, Krieg gets a knock on his front door. It's the 3 little pigs looking for some candy, and now that he's turned over a new leaf, he loads them all up with tons of the old man candy that he can find. It looks like Scrooge here has finally embraced the Halloween spirit, and when he looks inside, he sees that little creep Sam turning his attention to a pissed-off robot who needs to learn a lesson. Thinking that it's all over, he goes inside and gets ready to sit back down, but just when he's about to breathe a sigh of relief, he's about to realize that all of these kids did not come for treats. Opening the door, he's horrified to see the 8 zombie students from the quarry all standing there covered in mud and rotten flesh. And the story ends as they tear him to pieces right on his own front porch, proving that in this town, nobody breaks the rules of Halloween and lives to tell the tale.
Trick or Treat 2007. I had a really fun time covering this episode, and I hope you did too. This is an important time at the end of the video here to wish you a happy Halloween from me to you. Thank you for giving us an amazing year here on the How to Beat channel, and thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe, and check out that How to Beat playlist for more videos just like this one. I'm Ben, I'll see you guys in the next episode, and have a damn good day.